Welcome to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. My name is Kristen.
And my name is Katie. And we want to spend a few minutes a day with you walking through the New Testament, one chapter at a time. This year, we will fix our gaze upon Christ so that we may know him, not only with our minds, but with our hearts.
Together, we will learn that who Jesus is changes everything. Welcome back to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. My name is Kristen Schmucker, and we are journeying through the New Testament one chapter at a time, and I've been loving our time in Ephesians. Today we're in Ephesians 6, wrapping up this amazing book. Paul continues to explain how believers should treat one another in the church and in their relationships. He begins with addressing children and parents. We should take note that Paul does not simply address the action of obedience, he also addresses the heart of respect. He encourages the Ephesian church toward what is right and reminds them that this command to honor is the first command that comes with a promise. This promise is similar to a proverb, in that it is not a guarantee, but a principle of life. Paul also clearly shows here that the responsibility is not only on the children to obey, but also on the parents to not stir up their children to anger and to point them to the Lord. Paul also speaks in this chapter to slaves and masters. This is a tricky passage to consider. It is important for us to know that the type of slavery here is very different from the racially based slavery that has been present in United States history. Slavery in this culture was also done voluntarily in order to pay a debt. And yet, as believers, we also understand the wickedness of even the concept of slavery. We can see here how Paul speaks into the present moment of his culture to propose a countercultural relationship of respect that was uncommon in his day. Even though we may be removed from this particular cultural issue, we can learn from the principles that Paul describes here. Paul then shifts his attention to the spiritual battle that believers are in. Verse 10 begins with the word finally, and this is showing us that these final instructions are in light of all that Paul has said throughout his letter to the Ephesian church. We are reminded to be strengthened by the Lord and his vast strength to face this life. We have the power that raised Jesus from the dead living inside of us, and we have no need to fear. Paul warns the church about the schemes of the enemy in this cosmic battle. Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, so we must be on guard to keep in mind who the real enemy is. Our enemy is the evil one and the dark spiritual forces that are at work. But Paul does not leave us without hope. The armor of God equips us to stand against the enemy. As we stand in the Lord's strength, we can do it with confidence that Jesus has already won. We are called to be active in this battle. Paul points out that believers should stand firm and pray at all times in the Spirit. This is not about us fighting the war in our own strength, but about us living in union with Christ. This armor is the Lord's armor, and we are able to bear this armor because we are united to Christ. This is not about who we are or us mustering up our own strength or trying to do more or do better. This is about us resting in our identity in Christ. It is about who he is. So we can face the battle without fear because Jesus has won the battle and we are his. Paul tells the believers at Ephesus to pray in the Spirit at all times. He tells them to come to the Lord with every request and to come in perseverance and with intercession for the saints. Paul ends the book with his final farewell to the Ephesian church as he asks for prayer and prays for peace and grace for them. We behold Jesus as the one who teaches us how to live in the world and the one who has overcome the world. We see him as the one who gives us armor for battle and the one who fights the battle in our place. We see him as the giver of grace and the giver of peace.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. Don't forget to check out the show notes for helpful links and resources related to today's episode. And make sure you are following at Daily Grace Podcast on Instagram for more A Year in the Bible content and at the Daily Grace Co. for all things Bible study resources. We can't wait to study again with you tomorrow. Bye, friends.